Welcome. Today, Jennifer and I will be talking about reading and reading fluency. So, what is a language disorder? A language disorder refers to a continuous difficulty in acquiring and using listening and speaking skills across any of the 5 areas of language. So the first area we will be talking about is phonology. Phonology is just the sound system of language. Deficits for children with a language disorder could be limited phonological awareness, and this just refers to things like rhyming, sound syllable deleting, segmenting sounds into words, and blending sounds. Individuals with a language disorder could also have difficulties with producing sounds and have more frequent errors than those of younger children who do not have a language disorder, and these errors will occur more than individuals at the similar stage of phonological development. They may also struggle with difficulty with early speech sounds, which can impact their intelligibility of their speech. The next area of language we will be talking about is morphology, which is the structure of words, and also syntax, so that is word order and grammar aspects of language. Deficits in both these areas could include late acquisition of word combinations, so when other children are producing word combinations, these children will produce them at a later time. Errors in morphological awareness may also occur, which this refers to difficulty with utilizing prefixes and suffixes, plurals, present progressives, and past tense markers, and then difficulty identifying and correcting grammatical errors. Semantics is the next area of language we will be talking about. Semantics refers to the meaning or vocabulary of language, and deficits in this area could include a slower rate of vocabulary development than that of children without language disorders, word finding difficulties, so they might have difficulties with coming up with a word on the spot. They also may struggle with listening comprehension, such as understanding questions in class and following those directions given in class. Then we have text comprehension deficits, which would fall under semantics, and this is where a child may have poor comprehension of narrative or expository text, particularly when it is necessary to draw inferences from literal content or when expository text is associated with different academic disciplines. The child may also struggle with organization skills of narratives and expository discourse, which could impact the ability to convey the intended meaning that they would like to convey. The last area of language we will be talking about is pragmatics, or the social use of language. So this includes like talking in a conversation, gestures, and facial expressions. Deficits in this area could include difficulty initiating play with peers, so you may notice the child playing alone instead of with others. Difficulty expressing ideas, feelings, and personal experiences, and they also could struggle with making relevant contributions to classroom discussions. So how is language connected to reading? Reading revolves around language skills. Some areas that are fundamental to strong reading instruction include phonemic awareness, or the auditory skill of recognizing and manipulating individual sounds or phonemes in spoken words. Phonetics, is the visual and auditory skill of connecting those sounds to letters and written words. And then fluency is the rate at which a person reads a passage. So phonemic awareness, phonetics, and fluency are related primarily to identifying words accurately and quickly. So this kind of goes back to automaticity, the ability to see a sentence and recognize those words quickly. Vocabulary and text comprehension are mostly involved in constructing meaning out of the text. And language disorders can have a direct impact on reading.
Word identification, also known as word reading, can be described in two different ways. One is using decoding and sounding out unfamiliar words. The other way is used by using sight word recognition and reading the word as a whole instead of individual sounds. This takes us to what reading actually is. The reading process is made up of two components, which are listed here. Identification of printed words and reading comprehension. Identification of printed words is related to written words. This relates more to the decoding part of reading, as a person must first see a word, identify what letters are in that word, and understand what sounds correspond with those letters. It is also significant in sight word reading, as a person must see the word and recognize it in order to be able to understand what word it is. Reading comprehension is sometimes seen as an equation. In order to have reading comprehension, the student must have decoding skills and linguistic comprehension. Both of these skills are equally as important. This is because when reading, the student first must be able to decode the text to know what the word is. However, they must also have the linguistic comprehension, which is the understanding of spoken language, to understand what that word means in the context of the text. If one of these skills is lacking, it impacts reading comprehension. For example, if the student struggles to decode a word, they may miss the meaning of the text. However, if they have poor linguistic comprehension, they may be able to read the word and not understand what it means in the text. Here are some strategies that can be used to aid a student with word identification. This can be used for students in the general classroom and with students with language disorders. The first method we are going to discuss is phonic word attack strategies. These strategies focus on training the students to have phonemic awareness and connect those to the orthographic symbols for words. Phonemic awareness is the ability to recognize and manipulate the individual sounds in a word. By helping students build this awareness and link it to written letters, letter-sound correspondence will become easier, which will help the students with decoding unfamiliar words. The second method listed is structural analysis. This method involves focusing on the morphological structure of words. This means analyzing and recognizing prefixes, suffixes, and stems. By learning these parts of the words, the students will be able to learn the pronunciation and rules for spelling. This is especially useful since there is a limited number of prefixes and suffixes. Therefore, learning the prefixes and suffixes helps the student not only simplify word recognition, but it will also aid them in decoding and understanding unfamiliar words that may contain these parts. The third method is using articulatory cues and mnemonics. Using these strategies makes the rote memorization of letter-sound correspondence easier. This may be especially helpful for students with language disorders, as making the memorization more fun may be more motivating and easier to remember. Some strategies include using articulatory properties of sounds to help students, such as using the quote-unquote nose sounds such as and The last method is a specific program called Say It and Move It. It is sometimes seen as SIMI. This program includes multiple components of reading instructions that can be altered to the student based on their level of reading and whether they have any language or learning disabilities. This program incorporates explicit training for the students on segmenting and blending of sounds, the application of phonic word attack strategies, and multisensory delivery by having the students involve movements, visual aids, and auditory stimuli. This system can be used with words of increasing complexity, which makes it good for all students.
So reading fluency is the speed of reading. It involves automaticity, controlled prosody, and anticipation of what is coming next. So how is language connected to fluency? Fluency is one of the components that is fundamental for strong reading instruction. Some evidence-based intervention strategies that teachers can utilize are developing the student's ability to decode sounds or words, ensure that students read connect text every day, modeling reading fluency for your students, and using repeated reading routines in your classroom.
So what is the role of an SLP when it comes to reading and literacy instruction? SLPs are the ones that help children with language disorders. Language disorders affect both spoken and written forms of communication. Therefore, reading comprehension, and writing falls under the umbrella of speech pathologists. Additionally, SLPs have extensive knowledge in the phonological system and phonemic awareness, which allows them to have a greater understanding of how to aid these students who struggle with these skills and reading. According to the American Speech Language Hearing Association, also known as ASHA, an SLP has many critical roles in reading instruction. SLPs help foster and develop early skills such as language acquisition and emergent literacy. These skills are critical and can help prevent writing and reading problems in the future. Given the SLP's extensive knowledge in the acquisition of sounds and language, they are more likely to be able to identify and assess students for reading and writing deficits. Additionally, SLPs are likely to see early warning signs and provide assessment and aid earlier than professionals with less training in these areas. SLPs are also critical when providing intervention and documenting the results of intervention, since they are more knowledgeable and understand what exactly to target, what to look for, and what skills to foster in order to help each student as best as possible. SLPs are also capable of wearing other hats when it comes to reading intervention. SLPs can provide support to other professionals such as the general education teachers and parents to help them foster an environment that aids students who may need extra support or strategies to use in the classroom or at home with all the children. Additionally, SLPs continue to learn more about reading and effective ways to treat and help students who may need more support, and helping advocate for those students who may not be able to advocate for themselves. Now that leads to what is the role of teachers. Teachers can provide general evidence-based instruction specific to foundational skills. These skills include phonics, phonemic awareness, and vocabulary, skills that are essential for reading. The reading instruction should be as explicit as possible to aid students who may need more support. Additionally, teachers should watch the students and report any student that may seem to be falling behind or struggling. This is a critical role for general education teachers. They are the ones that see the students more often and for larger periods of time. Therefore, they are more likely to see warning signs and pick up on struggles that an SLP or other specialist who may only see the student for a short period of time may not catch. Teachers can support the intervention team by keeping in mind student goals and reinforcing them in the classroom. This helps the students generalize skills and may keep them more motivated if the teacher also includes student interest in engaging activities. Lastly, the teachers can help by staying in contact with the SLP and the rest of the intervention team. As was mentioned before, teachers are the ones that spend the bulk of the time with a student. Staying in contact with the intervention team and sending updates on the student's progress in class, new interests, and possible new concerns can help the team know if the intervention is being successful or if something should be altered to help the student better. Communication always helps, as that way the SLP and the intervention team can see how skills are being generalized and if a certain tactic is helping.